This next problem is the one that gives people the most difficulty. You're thinking, all those are causing me difficulty. Well, I know it's a brand new thing. Let's rehash this so far. It's where these orders are given according to the body weight of the patient. Almost always in a certain number, whatever the number is, whether it's 8, 5, 10, 27, is so many milligrams per kilogram per day. This next thing is different. Look on this one, the part 2 and number 2. Now this is done sometimes. You must get used to this. It's a little different because it's just something you have to read carefully. Don't slip up on this. If you take it step by step and you write down what you have each step, you shouldn't mess up. Look at number 2. It says 10 milligrams per kilogram. What's missing? It doesn't say per day. Everything we've done so far in this section, the examples I gave, all the stuff on the part 1, all the others here on part 2, except this one, will say a certain number of milligrams per kilogram per day. This doesn't say per day. Realize, everything before we got to this section, everything you've ever done that was not this weight-based stuff is a per dose amount. The doctor orders 50 milligrams of whatever. That's a per dose amount. Doctor, or you get some Tylenol. You need some Tylenol. You're supposed to have 625 milligrams. That means per dose. The only time the per day thing comes into play is with these where it says per day. Like 10 milligrams per kilogram per day, and you must convert that per day thing to a per dose amount. The thing is, that doesn't say per day. If it doesn't say per day, it doesn't mean per day, and that's not the per day amount, that's already the per dose amount. Here's what I'm saying. The order merely says 10 milligrams per kilogram. We'll write it down, do the same steps. Write down what it says. 10 milligrams per, that's all though. It doesn't say per day. Then don't write per day. I now multiply by the patient's weight expressed in kilograms, which I don't know yet. Patient weighs 80 pounds. So let's see, patient weighs 80 pounds. Take 80, you divide by 2.2. So the patient weighs 36 point, 36, 36, 36, so 36 point blah, 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 blah. I can just write 36 there if I want to. I'll say this one more time. Keep track of every step. You can use a rounded off number just to keep track of the numbers and the words, but don't use this number in the next calculation. Use the big long strung out 36 point blah, 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 blah number in the next calculation. So the next step is I got to take that 36 point blah, 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 blah times 10. If I take that 36 point blah, 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 blah times 10, why now it says 363 point blah, 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 blah. So, but wait, stop. That 363 whatever number is how many watts? When I cancel out the kilograms, what word is still there? It doesn't say milligrams per anything, does it? It's not per day, because the per day isn't there. That's merely the number of milligrams. Now this is vitally important. Every other one we've done in this topic, at this point said milligrams per day, because the per day was a part of the original order. This doesn't say per day. Which means it's really, I shouldn't say it's very simple, but it is very simple. If it doesn't say per day, this is a per dose amount. That means every time the patient gets his or her medication, that's how much the patient will get. What are you not going to do with this kind of problem if it doesn't say per day? You're not going to divide by the number of times per day, because that's not the per day amount. Now some people have trouble. It says, let's see here, it says Q8H. Well, of course, everything you have to know how often to give it up until we began this. In the normal order, you'd have to know how often to give it. If the doctor said take 1,000 milligrams of Tylenol every 8 hours, it doesn't matter how many times a day or how often, you know that dose is 1,000 milligrams per dose. So this is just a per dose amount. If it doesn't say per day, it doesn't mean per day, and it's not a per day. So I'm beating this to death. What do I do now? I go straight to my dosage calculation problems. In one sense, I'm going to skip a step I normally do. I'm not going to divide by the number of times per day because that's the per dose amount already. So how strong is my stuff? Well, let's see here. There it is. 200 milligrams per milliliter. Cancel, cancel. So I take that big, long, strung out number still left in my handy-dandy calculator. 363 point blah, 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 blah. I then divide that by 200. And the answer is one. Hey, round it off to the proper number of places. It's more than one, so round off to tenths. The final answer is 1.8. So answer 1.8. And we look on here, why yes, 1.8 is the answer. Oh boy. Do you see the difference? I want to respond. Yes, no, yes. You see the difference. One more time. If it doesn't say per day at the end of this, it doesn't mean per day, and that is automatically the per dose amount. So what will you not have to do in a problem like this? You won't go through that step where you divide this by the number of times per day because that's not the per day amount. Because that's not the per day, because that wasn't the per day. You go directly to the dosage calculation because that's the per dose amount at that point. So what you'll do is all these things, both the part one, the part two, part one doesn't say part one, but just do it. There's 5 in each one. Now here's the scary thing. I'm trying to scare you actually. As I said before in the first of these videos, we're leading up to the stuff that's in the book that's very confusing. If we just jumped into that, you'd be totally confused. You thinking, I'm confused now. I know. We're leading you up to that, so you need to know how to do this because that stuff's even crazier and more weird than this stuff is. So do all of these. Even though we've done some of these here, do them again. There's 5 on each one. The answers are there. One here pertains to the label on the first part. 2 of those pertain to labels on the flip side. So work on those. I will have some practice quizzes up to see how you're doing, but do these first. Get them done. Do them over and over again if you have to. But work on these because this is extremely important.